I want to talk about one of the heart practices this evening. The heart practices, often called the brahma viharas, which means is translated generally as the sublime abodes, the sublime place our heart resides, and also called the beautiful qualities. And the four heart practices, the four heart qualities are loving kindness, metta, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. And I'm going to talk tonight about the third one, mudita. Is the Pali word. It is usually translated as sympathetic joy or appreciative joy. And I'll probably say mudita because it's easier. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I really like seeing it just came to me this image of the heart qualities, the four qualities, with equanimity as kind of a foundation, and then compassion and mudita. When you are faced with something that's painful or suffering, there's the response of compassion. And when you're faced with, or when you see something that's joyful or happy, mudita. And I should explain what mudita is. Mudita is joy, appreciative joy, joy for the good fortune, the wholesome good fortune of others, the happiness of others. You're happy for their happiness. And so if you see joy or happiness, then your response is also joyful and happy. And then the overarching quality is loving kindness, metta, where we just move through the world with this open-hearted quality of kindness, friendliness toward everything, even things that may be uncomfortable, which is the challenge. So I want to talk about mudita, and the root means to be pleased. And Sharon Salzberg, who wrote the book Loving Kindness, which talks about, it's a really excellent book, and it talks about these four qualities, the heart practices. She says it's a rare and beautiful quality to feel truly happy when others are happy. And I think for me, it's been the most challenging one of the practices of the heart practices, to be happy for the good fortune of others. And I think it's really important that we do that right now because of all the harshness in the world, all the violence, all the hatred. It's really important to practice this softening of the heart, especially for folks we're not particularly fond of. There's so much dehumanizing going on, this turning folks into stereotypes, and this mudita can be an antidote to that separateness, an antidote to that anger. And it is such a beautiful quality, because if you think of someone you know who is experiencing some joy right now, like I have a friend who's in a new relationship, and to see her smile is just like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for her. And just to see those types of things, and to experience how that feels, it's really beautiful. It's so nice to have that happiness for someone else. And what's going on, you're getting out of self. There's no comparison. You're absolutely attentive to the other person. You may not be in the same room. Maybe you got a text saying blah, 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 and then you're happy for that person. Whatever it is, they got a great new haircut, or a good tattoo, or a good job, or whatever it is, and there's some joy there. It's really sweet to have that. And we lose ourselves, as I said, when we celebrate others. We're not in this comparing mind. We're not in this judging mind. It's just this sense of separation is gone. It's not me against you, which is unfortunately the world we live in. We're taught to be competitive. We're taught to win. Mudita can arise spontaneously, especially if it's someone we care about who's experiencing good fortune or happiness. But a lot of times it needs some help, which is why I think Sharon Salzberg wrote this book on all the different practices. We need support in all these hard practices. Because we come from a very competitive world, it can be really challenging to succeed at all costs. I think about, who is it? the football coach Vince Lombardi. He said, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. It's like, somebody's got to lose if you're going to win. But if that's how you think about it, and we have this zero sum mentality, this zero sum thinking that there has to be a winner. If there's a winner, there's going to be a loser. Instead of, seeing that that doesn't have to be true. That's a paradigm that we're stuck in. But it doesn't mean that's how we have to move through the world, because that sets up this sense of, as I said, competitiveness, and me against you and us against them, this separation. And it's really hard to get out of that, especially if we're been insecure in some way. If it's been challenging for us in the world, there is this sense of I need to watch out for my stuff. I need to take care of me, but which is important, and it's part of how we have evolved. We have to be careful of danger, absolutely, but we also have to recognize when that takes over too much, and we're just kind of like making sure they don't take advantage of us, making sure they don't get one over on us, that type of thing. That's a really competitive mentality. That's an us against them mentality. That sets up that separateness, that binary, those biases. I heard a nun, she's in Thich Nhat Hanh's tradition, Sister Clear Grace Dayananda, talk last year, and they said, when this happens, it's because we've picked up the stick of self. It's just, boop, it's me and you, us and them, and that's this separation. And we find this difficulty, this competitiveness with mudita showing up in many, many ways. We have this judgment, this differentiation, us and them. And so we're always judging, they're this, they're that. We can, I have been very good at this in my life. I can tell a whole life story about someone based on what they look like, what they're, without even saying a word on them. I just see them walk by and I've completely figured out who they are and what they believe and blah, blah, blah. Or I hear an accent. I grew up in New York City, and I left home when I was 18, and I moved to California. And in that year and a half before I went back to visit, I'd watch movies, I'd hear jokes, and I'd hear New York accents. And New York accents oftentimes in movies and TV shows, they're not really bright people. And I found myself going back to New York, judging the people, and I'm like, I might have that accent too. It's so bizarre how we're impacted if we don't pay attention. And so to recognize that judgment, that prejudice, and prejudice gets in the way of not being comfortable with mudita, being joyful for another person, because they don't deserve it for some reason. Maybe they don't look like us. They don't believe what we believe. They think differently. They look different. They talk different. They dress different. Whatever it is, we have created a difference that separates us from them. Therefore, we don't have to be happy with their good fortune. In fact, we can be pissed off. There's that competitiveness, that resentment. If somebody else we don't feel is deserving gets something, we get pissed off. We can get pissed off. We can carry resentment. And then if something unfortunate happens to them, we can be happy. That Schadenfreude, that happiness at the misfortune of people we don't think are deserving. It's this tangled web that has been created. That not that we sat down consciously to create this web, but it's been through what we've received through all our senses. What we read, what we hear, what we're taught. That kind of develops this worldview, and which is the brilliance of these practices, because it's like, what? This is not okay. We need to be joyful for the good fortune of other human beings. But it's really hard to feel mudita when we're stuck in these stories of lack, and and jealousy and resentment, and so much of it is driven by fear and resentment. And this, one of the hindrances is restlessness and worry. We're worried that it's not going to happen, we're not going to get what we need, or we're going to lose what we have. That, I love that phrase. Are we going to be okay? We're stuck in that story of us and them, and if they get it, there's not enough for me, because there's like this finite amount of happiness or joy or whatever it is we think we need. And if I'm struggling, it's their fault. We see that everywhere right now. There's all the blaming and the taking it out, and they've got my job and this and that. It's horrific. This separation, this blaming, this dismissal of other human beings for whatever reason. We can dehumanize them so easily. And it's, like I said, there's so much of that on display right now. Pick a side. We have to pick sides right now. Everything is such a binary. It's like there's nuance is lost. And that leads to a lot of suffering, And when we dehumanize, A, we dehumanize the other person, and B, we dehumanize ourselves, because when we dehumanize others, that gives us an out. We don't have to feel. It's a bypass. It's a wall. We don't have to feel pain. We can just go, we don't, and we don't have to feel guilty for our actions, because they're undeserving of good stuff, because they're the root of all that's wrong, or they're not deserving. I mean, this is the root of slavery. This is the root of anti-blackness. This is the root of all anti-hatred, hate stuff. They're different, they don't deserve. They are different, they don't deserve. So the problem, and I say problem, it's not really a problem. The problem with mudita and all the heart practices, the brahma viharas, is that they are unconditional. Damn it. Because we want to pick and choose, but the Buddha's like, in the Metta Sutta, it says, omitting none. We wish well for all beings, omitting none. It can't be plainer than that. It can't be plainer than that. As much as we want to, the practice is to be loving, be friendly, be kind, not put anyone out of our heart. And there's a quote from this person, C.F. Knight, who I'm not sure who this person is, although they've written some stuff around the heart practices. They say, it is craving that gives rise to jealousy, envy, covetousness, avarice, and greed in all of its manifestations. Here it is that mudita, when practiced and developed, becomes a sublime and boundless state of mind to be dwelt in as a corrective characteristic for their removal. So what that means is that when we practice mudita, we're rooting out greed, we're rooting out jealousy, we're rooting out envy, craving in all of its manifestations. And craving is one of the three defilements: greed, craving, hatred, aversion, and ignorance, delusion. These are the root of so much suffering in the world. And so to crave, to be caught up in this wanting a particular outcome, wanting things to be a certain way, if we practice mudita, it's an antidote to that. Along with, there's joy, there's metta, there's compassion, there's gratitude. All of these practices, the heart practices, gratitude practice, mindfulness, of course, beginning to see the reality, see where we're stuck in these stories of differentiation, and B, be willing to recognize our shared humanity. That's key. to not put anyone out of our heart for whatever reason. Whatever reason. We remember that each of us is human. Each of us is flesh and blood. We rehumanize the folks we don't like or feel hostility to or even just don't like. It's messy. All of these are messy practices. Mudita is a very messy practice. When somebody we don't like has joy in their life, it's like, it feels like a personal assault. And it's not. It's not. I told this story the other day. These roots of the difficulty of mudita can go really deep. When I was a kid, I'm talking like 8 years old, and I told a story the other day. I broke a friend's. I don't know. I don't even remember. But I think maybe I broke a friend's toy, and I had to give her one of mine as a replacement. So she came over, and I had a toy box, and she was looking in the toy box, and she pulled out. I see this so clearly. Linda Brill, we were born the same day. Anyway, she was my best friend when I was like 8. She took out a toy, and it was a little toy iron that I never played with, but I didn't want her to have it. It's like, I didn't want it, but you can't have it. I had to let her have it, but it was like so resentful. I didn't know what resentment meant when I was 8, but it was like, I don't want her to have it. Do you play with it? No, but she can't have it. And I did that later on too. I would break up in a relationship and then find that person was going with someone else. And I'm like, I don't want you, but I don't want you to be with them either. It's like this zero sum. It's all about me, this craving. What if you get it, then there won't be enough for me. That's where this mudita is so important, to really break that cycle of not enough, craving, grasping, clinging. And so this, oh, you're happy, deep bows, even if that's as good as we can get, even if there's no smile on our lips, although Thich Nhat Hanh talks about the importance of smiling, just a bow, deep bow. It's messy, and in the book, Sharon quotes Henry Wadsworth Longfellow in the chapter on mudita, and says, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow said, if we could read the secret history of our enemies, we should find in each person's life sorrow and suffering enough to disarm all hostility. Everyone's life is by nature continually vulnerable to pain. Remembering this is our gateway to mudita, because what we've done is we've created these cardboard cutouts. Other people we don't like, especially, they're stereotypes, they're two-dimensional, they have no story. We don't wonder about them. They're just there. And when we begin to recognize their humanity, that they have a story, they become human. That's when we begin to rehumanize people. It's hard to chip away these years of rigidity and our conditioned beliefs, but it serves us to practice joy and to recognize and be happy for their joy. And it serves us because we connect with their joy. What did Voltaire said? Appreciation is a wonderful thing. It can make what is excellent in others belong to us as well. So we get to benefit from their joy by experiencing it ourselves. And it benefits others because we drop the aversion and reconnect. And I've been reading this book that it's been taking me forever to read. It's called See No Stranger by Valerie Kaur, Kaur. She's a Sikh, Sikh, and it's this beautiful book. And she talks about the wonder, developing the capacity to wonder about others. And she said, if we're safe and nurtured enough to develop our capacity to wonder, we start to wonder about the people in our lives, their thoughts and experiences, their pain and joy, their wants and needs. We begin to sense that they are themselves as vast and complex as we are to ourselves. Their inner world as infinite as our own. In other words, we are seeing them as our equal. It's easy to wonder about the internal life of the people closest to us. It's harder to wonder about people who seem like strangers or outsiders. But when we choose to wonder about people we don't know, when we imagine their lives and listen for their stories, we begin to expand the circle of those we see as part of us. We prepare ourselves to love beyond what evolution requires. And this is really, I think, a key point when we begin to recognize, we recognize the humanity of others. We recognize that we are all part of the same. We're all interconnected. Thich Nhat Hanh calls it interbeing, and she talks about I love this because it touches on the scientific part of it. What has been an ancient spiritual truth about our interconnectedness is now increasingly verified by science. We are all indivisibly part of one another. We share a common ancestry with everyone and everything alive on Earth. The air we breathe contains atoms that have passed through the lungs of ancestors long dead. Our bodies are composed of the same elements created deep inside the furnaces of long dead stars. We can look upon the face of anyone or anything around us and say, as a moral declaration and a spiritual, cosmological, and biological fact, you are a part of me I do not know yet. You're a part of me, I just don't know you yet, which I think is incredibly powerful, incredibly beautiful, and belongs in this practice of mudita. You know? Why would we not be happy and joyful for parts of ourselves? Even if we don't know them. I mean, we see people, sports teams who win something, and we can be happy for them. I don't know those people. I'm never going to connect with them. Hooray for the person who won the lottery. Yay. Whatever it is. Why would I shut my heart down to something I'm so intimately connected with, even though I'm not maybe aware of it on a tactile level, That's the challenge of the practice, to be willing to see that connectivity. All the stories of difference are just that. They're stories. They're stories. We've made up these stories. And they change over the years, over the centuries. I remember in studying this in graduate school, or no, I was in college, but us and them, and you see how us's form, and then when something else happens, or enemies are enemies, and then another, something outside comes in, and then those enemies form an us, and they fight that other enemy, and then that other enemy goes away, and then they go back to fighting each other instead of why. Why are we doing this? This has been going on for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So to really stop and be willing to sit and say, okay, I see you. And as usual, it doesn't mean we open our doors to people who cause us harm, because it's not idiot compassion, idiot mudita. It's this, there's discernment, there's wisdom, there's clarity, and compassion. We see reality as it is, but we don't discard people because of what we do, because we wonder about their stories. How did they get here? And we work to end harm where it's being caused. We do what needs to be done, but we don't put ourselves in harm's way. Not causing harm means to ourselves as well as others, but we don't want to shut our hearts. I think that's really important, because we're the ones who carry around that baggage. We're the ones who are selfing and saying they don't deserve it for whatever reason. And this is a practice that it can take a lifetime. It can take a lifetime. But I really want to move in that direction. So I'm willing to be joyful. And I see where I'm not, because I still have that, not them. So it's like, okay, then can I bring the practice there? You know, we celebrate joys. Even folks who are in great pain and great suffering can experience joy and happiness. So we honor whatever's there. There's an intentionality to this practice that's important. You know, we recognize that it's hard. That's Sharon Salzberg, as I mentioned, has practices in the book, Loving Kindness. Start with someone you care about. Recognize the practice of mudita. Recognize it. When you experience that joy for someone, know that's what it is. Because I think some of these practices take awareness. Well, they all do, but we have to pay attention and go, oh, this is mudita. So we begin to have the visceral knowledge of what we're experiencing so that we can bring it to maybe folks that we don't know or that we're not crazy about. Don't start with the worst person who ever lived or who caused you harm. Start with the annoying person who blocks your driveway or moves your garbage cans. Anyway, that's my personal story because they bother the hell out of me. Anyway, so that's where you start, you know. May your happiness not diminish. May it increase. Simple things like that. You know, it's a practice with others in mind. You know, and even if you don't see anything joyful, hope that there's something there. You know, wish people well. Be open to releasing the greed and the fear and the jealousy. You know, and the more we practice, the more open our hearts become, the more spontaneous we feel. And the Buddha said in the suttas, he said we sit imbued with a heart mind full of metta, of loving kindness, of friendliness, of compassion, of appreciative joy, of equanimity. It's how we move through the world. That's the wise, compassionate response to everything. That's how we move through the world. When we've gotten rid of the craving, we've gotten rid of the animosity, when we've cleared away the fog banks and there's a clarity, what arises is these beautiful qualities of the heart. And I don't know where I heard it, but I heard mudita described as the generosity of the heart. And I really like that because our heart is generous. We're not getting anything out of it except the joy from your joy. No, nothing's going into my pocket, but my heart expands. Oh, just like the Grinch. If you saw the Grinch who stole Christmas, his heart just got so big. That's what this is about. So thank you so much, my friends, for your kind attention. I really, really appreciate it.